Alright, hello everyone. I hope you are all doing well on this Sunday afternoon for me, whatever time it is for you. Let me go ahead and actually turn this down a little bit so I can hear myself talk. There we go. Alright, let me know if volume levels are alright. This is the inaugural Zoe B YouTube live stream. As I mentioned in my sort of little update video, I've stopped streaming on Twitch, and YouTube is my new home for streams. But I've also never done it here before, so we're gonna figure it out together. Volume is alright, voice still fairly quiet. I can probably fix that. We'll figure it out. Okay. All right. Let me turn the music down a little bit. How is that? Okay. You're here to win the argument with a new technique you just learned. Wonderful. So that's part of what I want to do today. Is talk about the video. We can chat about it if you have any questions. I can answer them here. And then once we're done talking about the video, then we can play some games. Well, probably just one game. But, so yeah, let me know if there is anything in particular that you guys would like to discuss about this video that I just released yesterday afternoon, that is about argumentation and rhetoric and all of those fun things that we all just love to talk about, don't we? Alright. Let's see. La Cafedora says, yeah, good theory. I did like it, but I'm bad at starting conversations with friends. How do I talk to belligerents? Oh gosh. Well, okay. So this is something that several commenters have brought up, and that I think is a worthwhile question. So a lot of people in the comments and during the premiere chat said that, you know, okay, this is awesome advice, but like, only if you're arguing in good faith. You know, what do you do with bad faith arguments? Like, you can't logic your way out of those. And I agree. That is something that I didn't really cover in the video. It was sort of outside the scope of what I was talking about, because the video itself, I really did want to just focus on good faith arguments, because I think that those are the only ones really worth, like, I mean, like people said in the comments, you know, if it's a bad faith argument, you're not going to get anywhere. So I don't know that it's worth even engaging with at all. But I'm also, like, that's just me and my sort of personal views on that, because I'm not very good at identifying good faith versus bad faith. Like, that's sort of a weakness of mine. And so I didn't really feel, it didn't feel like something that I could cover adequately in that video. And I realize that's a really non-answer answer. So apologies for that. But I think that it's worth talking about and worth looking into, so it might be something that I could do like a follow-up video on sometime later, where I look into how to deal with like bad faith, you know, bad actors and stuff. But for now, big shrug is all that I can offer. Let's see. Oh, Jay says Rose and I are here. Welcome. I'm glad that you could pop in. Yes, Not a Bear says yeah, some people aren't actually willing to change their views, and people don't change right away. Sometimes you just have to walk away. Yes, which is frustrating, and I'm one of those kinds of people. I think this is why I became a teacher. I'm one of those kinds of people who wants to, like, help everybody and talk to everybody, and I you know, there's no person that I'm like I always think that there's some kernel that I could reach, but I just have to accept that that is not always the case, and that sometimes people just aren't gonna listen, and I just have to accept that, but it is hard. Let's see, do you know why a bunch of people were involuntary unsubscribed from your channel? I didn't notice I was unsubscribed until I saw a comment on another of your videos. Yeah, I heard this from a few people. There were, I think it was like comments on a video of a friend of mine. I forget whose it was. I don't remember. But they said like, oh hey, Zoe B, for some reason I'm unsubscribed to you and I don't know what happened. So check your subscriptions. I guess if you're here, then you probably are still subscribed. But I do not know what is happening, but several people have brought that to my attention, so be aware of that. Ooh, La Cafe Dora says, what do we do if the opponent is someone that doesn't know how to argue, or who doesn't actually have any practice at comprehending logic and executing deductive reasoning? Yeah, that's a good question. I think this is hard because a lot of the time, if you try to break something down or help people understand like the logic behind things, a lot of the time it can seem condescending, and that's no fun for anybody because you sound like an ass and then they're not as willing to listen to you, and it's just like a whole thing. So while it may seem tempting to explain the logic that they don't understand, that's probably not the best thing to do. Yeah, what Zergberger says is you should maybe try one-on-one conversations. If they're in public, they're often just more defensive, which is true. I think a lot of the times, and this is something that I mentioned in my video about conspiracy theorists, is it's gonna take time. You know, people aren't going to change in front of your eyes. Like, you're not gonna see somebody start a conversation with one belief and then end the conversation with a totally different belief. You know, 99% of the time, that's not what's gonna happen. They're going to be defensive, they're gonna be angry, they're going to be frustrated, but maybe after they go home, sit down, think about it for a little bit, and they kind of internalize some of those things that you said, then the shell starts to soften, they start to question some things, and then the next time you discuss with them, they'll be a little bit more open to things. And then that cycle just continues. And eventually, that's how you can change people's minds. So it is slow, which I realize is frustrating. Let's see. Oh gosh, so many comments. Assuming good faith often works even if they're arguing in bad faith. Yes. At least that is my experience. I know that that's not everyone's experience. Opinions need to be thrusted upon people. Oh, for sure, Zoe, I believe just about everyone is capable of change and rehabilitation in many areas, but they have to be open to some degree. Yes. For sure. Yes, Nerd Teacher says, I'd also recognize that what one person views as logical isn't inherently logical to everyone and can be culturally and subculturally different. Yes, that is very true. Yes. I felt like I had something extra to say to that, but no! Nerd Teacher is on point, as always. Okay, Pesky Pigeon asks, how can you tell people that their sources and news could be not factual? Oh gosh. I think I would say, and I am not an expert on this, this is my own personal experience and my knowledge of rhetoric. I am not an expert. With that out of the way, what I would do is I would say to that person, well, I would never just tell them, hey, this is fake news or whatever. I would go to like so like if it's a news channel, perhaps, I would look at where they got their sources and where they got their information. And if they got their information from a faulty source, then I would maybe bring that up. Like, hey, I know that, you know, you believe this news story, but did you know that they got it from this thing which is not true? Because then you're not actually attacking the source that they are using. You know, you're attacking the source that their source is using, if that makes sense. So it's not like you're... Because, like, how could they have known? Your family member, how could they have known that this source was faulty? So it's less like blame on them. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying. Hopefully it does. Let me know if it does. Yes. Oh, there we go. Philippe D'Souza says, maybe try real-life examples as one way to help people understand your arguments. That is great advice. That's one of the things that I talk about in my conspiracy theory video as well, which is like, a lot of the times this like theoretical stuff isn't going to change people's minds. What changes people's minds is seeing things with their own two eyes. And that's part of why a lot of pseudoscience is so attractive. Because, for instance, if you look at the Earth with your own two eyeballs, it looks flat. Like, you can't see the curvature. So it's sort of like using the enemy's tools against them, I suppose, where if this kind of hard, concrete evidence is what got them to believe the pseudoscience, then maybe you can use hard, concrete evidence to help them believe the actual science. I still think a lot about your Talking to Conspiracy Theorists video. I'm so glad that video... I tried a lot of things with that video. I took a lot of creative risks. I was very experimental. I think some things worked, some things didn't. I'm still learning. I think that a lot of what I said was good. I still stand by that. But I think from a like technical production level, some things could have been better. But that is neither here nor there. We are always growing and always learning. Sergeant Snivy says, what are some strategies for trying to bridge the disconnect once you've observed it? Like, for instance, how would you pitch to Lauren Fix that there is no war on cars? Oh gosh. What I would do is I would probably ask her questions. I would ask her to explain to me her version of reality. Like, this war on cars, what does it look like? What are the sort of concrete things that are happening that lead you to believe that this does exist? And that would help me get a better idea of the like pillars that uphold this belief that she has. And then once I understand what those pillars are, then I can start to, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound awful, like undermine them. There is no better word. But once I find those pillars, then those are the things that I can focus on and find some counter evidence for. Hopefully that answers your question. Oh, there are so many people in chat. Welcome, all of you. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't help that when you have anxiety and generally don't want to start arguing, only for it to be a bitter end. Yeah. Trust me, I feel that, friend. Ah, Dawn Dar says, have you heard of motivational interviewing? It's used in the medical field to gauge how open people are to changing their opinions and behaviors. Yeah, this is, I believe, I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong here, but I believe that that's a thing that's often used in, like, therapy, is getting people to, it's like that kind of dialogue. So yeah, I have heard of that, in that context at least. Light and Dark Love says, I'm trying to be patient with a couple and one friend I wanted to invite to my wedding, but it's been hard even though a bunch of my friends and one family member got COVID. What do you do to de-stress? I am still learning how to de-stress. That is something that I am still working on. I watch a lot of movies and TV shows because I know a lot of people like play games to de-stress, but for me, I like games that sort of get my brain working. And if my brain is working on games, then it's in work mode, and if it's in work mode, then I'm also thinking about the things that I have to be stressed about, because in my head, if I can just work through them, then it'll be fine. But with movies and TV shows, it's much more of a passive thing, so I can just sort of like melt into whatever it is that I'm watching, and then my brain is like turned off, so it isn't worrying about those things. So yeah, movies and TV, I suppose, is the answer to that. Let's see. If I close my eyes, I don't see any curvature. Checkmate, round earthers. Good one. How do you distinguish, this is Guy Random, how do you distinguish between issues being legitimately complicated versus certain actors just trying to muddy the waters or persistent misconceptions, especially with all the information available online? That's a really good question. I would say that's the point where you need to talk to experts or turn to experts, because experts have a good idea of the situation of, you know, whatever field it is that you're looking at. So for instance, like climate change, a lot of people will say like, oh, you know, the science, like, it's still out, people aren't in agreement, you know, it's, we don't know if it's warming or not, it might be, who knows? But like, scientists know. They are pretty much in agreement, like, the science is settled. It's not actually as complicated as they're making it out to be, like, there is consensus. So I think using that as kind of a model for other problems, which, you know, there's a whole other conversation to be had about expertise and trusting experts and that kind of stuff, but as a good rule of thumb, that would be my suggestion. An additional thing that baffles me about the war on cars thing is that I would find it pretty cool if it was actually happening, but alas. It's... As someone who has lived in a rural area and which had like no public transportation, and also I don't know that super robust public transportation would have helped, just because of the way that our town was like laid out and the fact that it was all like super scary back roads. I think I will say cars are good in some places, but I do think that our public transportation here in the US needs to be a lot better. And if we were fighting for that, yeah. Ooh, Sheldon Allen says, what inspired you to make the video? Just Twitter and stuff you've observed in the wild? What did inspire me to make the video? I think that it was one of those ideas that I've had for a really long time. Because it's always kind of been there in the back of my head, at least one, because like I said in the video, once you learn about it, it's everywhere. And so once it was in my brain and I started identifying it in certain places and with certain arguments, I was like, I have to share this with people. Like, this is life-changing to recognize that so many things can be boiled down into these 4 steps, and it makes it a lot easier, in most cases, a lot easier to deal with things when you can kind of break them down into manageable chunks. So I think it's always been there. It's always been something that I've wanted to cover. And I think this spot in my schedule just happened to be a good fit for when I could actually write the script and do the video. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. Rogue Dog X says, what is one time that you've had your mind change that sticks out? Okay. So this is a long-term change. This is not a single conversation that changed my mind. But when this is a little embarrassing. When I was a freshman in college, or I guess when I was in high school, I didn't believe in evolution. I thought the theory of evolution was similar to climate change. I thought that it was like, the science isn't settled. We still haven't found the missing link. Like, there's not enough evidence. Like, of course I believe that things can adapt and change, but I don't believe that they can go from one species to another species. That's just too much. And in college, the way that my college was set up was that all first years were divided into, we had to take a first year seminar type class, and each first year seminar class, it was a small class, only 12 or 15 of us, and the professor who was teaching that class could teach it in whatever sort of way they wanted and through whatever lens or with whatever theme they wanted. And the professor that I had, his theme was evolution, because it turns out he was an organic chemistry professor, and he had actually studied a lot of biochem as it relates to evolution. And so I had that class with him, and it was, I don't know, there wasn't a ton of actual science in there, but it just got me thinking, and I really liked this professor. So I ended up taking another class of his that was about, I think that there was another class that was just about the evolution of the human, the Homo genus. And then I took another class from him that was about different theories on the creation of the earth, from different religious and scientific perspectives. What are all of these different creation myth stories or creation theories that people have, and comparing them and looking at how they relate to the science. And so across these 3 classes that I had with this professor, and I spent a lot of time with this professor, he was a really great guy, and we would sometimes talk after class and talk through my ideas, and he was always very patient. He never made fun of me. He was never oh, you don't believe in evolution, you're gonna fail this class. He was very kind and open to talking about it, and it was over that first year of school that I learned about the science behind things, and learned that yeah, the science is settled. This is a thing that scientists aren't really debating the existence of evolution as a process. So I would say that is one of the biggest things that I know I can map the trajectory of not believing it to believing it and like the one professor in one class that is the reason why I now have that scientific literacy. Okay. Let's see. We all know stress doesn't count when it's from a game, right? Sweats and tabletop RPG. Yes. Okie doke. Sorry, just reading chat and trying to keep up with all of these messages. This is so fucking cozy. I'm so glad. Those are the vibes that I'm always going for, except I see I have mascara on my eyeball. Okay, did that help? Yeah, okay. And then I accidentally majored in organic chemistry. I was a biology major for a year, and then that didn't pan out. But I actually, so everybody's scared of organic chemistry. That's like the one chem class that is like, everyone's terrified of it. I actually did better in organic chemistry than I did in my intro to biology class. I don't know how that works, but Sorptive says the juicy critical history of evolutionary theory and its continuing relationship to eugenics and social Darwinism needs to be taught. Yes. That's so this is maybe something worth making a video on. Part of what the classes on evolution that I took, part of what they talked about was evolutionary psychology. And I was obsessed with evolutionary psychology. And I think part of the reason why is because at that point in my life I had really, really awful social anxiety. And so I was like trying to understand human beings and like what I could do to make sure that human beings would be nice to me. And so it was through evolutionary psychology that I tried to understand the people. But now, having read a little bit more about some particular evolutionary psychologists and some of the theories that they have, a lot of evolutionary psychology can be kind of problematic. Because a lot of it does veer a little bit into the eugenics and social Darwinism area, and that's not good. I don't think that we need to throw out the whole field of evolutionary psychology, because I think it is worth studying and thinking about how our brains and our ways of thinking about things and doing things as creatures has evolved over time. But yes, that is something that a lot of people who are really invested in evolution and its different theories and applications, it can be easy to fall into some of those traps when you're so focused on the science that you forget about the people that the science is about. Zoe would like to work with me on school plus eugenics topics. I'd be down. Listen, reach out. Like, I am not going to promise that it'll happen, but I am always up for talking about that. How do you keep a discussion on politics from going on this massive string of tangents that leaves most topics unresolved? I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately. I am the queen of tangents. Tangents are unavoidable in my brain. La Coffeetor says, so basically, Zoe went to college and her worldview expanded. Funny that. Yep. What's the background music? Oh, let me... So I have this link, or I have this playlist of music that's just for Twitch, though I guess I'm not using Twitch anymore, but I'll post that in the chat. There we go. It should be public. It is public. Okay. see. I was a creationist once, but I was also super into science and held the view that if something is true, the data should support it. Yes. Biomechanical engineers are looked at by normal engineers as rocket scientists. That's funny. My husband is an engineer, and I would be curious to hear if he agrees. Ooh, Harmless Weirdo says, do we need college, or at least college as it's currently structured? Oh gosh, that's a big question. And I think need is a funny word. And I don't know what you mean by we. So the way I'm going to interpret this question is we as individuals, and need as in, like it would be good for us in, like, as human beings. In that case, yes. I think that college can be a very good thing. Though I'm very pro liberal arts colleges, because I think that people should... I know this was like a whole debate several months ago where people were talking about, like, should we have to take, you know, English classes if you're a math major, or should you have to take, you know, history classes if you're a biology major? And I am very pro liberal arts college. I am very pro having sort of breadth of knowledge that underpins your depth of knowledge in a specific field, because I think that it's important for all of us to have at least a cursory understanding of most topics. I don't know if that answers your question in a satisfactory way. Let's see. Oh gosh, so many. Evolutionary psychology is largely bunk. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are a reach. Cavernacle is here. Hello. Hey Zoe, cool to see you streaming on YouTube, and great new video. Can we use stasis theory to get me to convince you Blade Runner is good? Okay. No. Let's see. Tangents are great. Douglas Adams taught me to love tangents back in middle school, and it's my favorite storytelling device ever since. Everyone should read some Douglas Adams. I have Douglas Adams right. Oh, what over here? There. Right. Yeah. Right there. Okay. I'd love to live in a world where students get paid to go to college. Yes. I agree. Lycia Pren, $2. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Alright, I think I'm almost caught up. College, like many other things, has been ruined by capitalism. The profit motive is an unforgiving rule that knows nothing of human suffering. Yes. Yes. That's... When I learned... So I taught for a couple of years at a private Midwestern Catholic university. And that school is like $55,000 a year, which is so much money. And when at one point, I learned how much the dean makes, or the president, one of those two people. And it's like $20 million or something around that. Which, like, when a lot of people complain about college expenses, they're often like, it's these professors, they're overpaid. They're not. Most professors are not overpaid. Most professors are underpaid. Most educators in this country are underpaid. It's the administration that makes all the money, and I don't, like, what do they... maybe their jobs are a lot more difficult than I'm giving them credit for. I would like to know why they need $20 million. Oh, John Etcheverry? John E. says, have you thought about doing a video about disability rights and how overlooked the community is? I have. I touched on it a little bit in my illiteracy video where I talked about like ableism in that way, and how a lot of adults who struggle with literacy struggle with it for other reasons, usually for economic reasons, or that they have a disability that they have not gotten the proper help with. But I do think I would need to like narrow it down to something a little bit more manageable, because disabilities as a big umbrella is just a lot, and I don't think that I could handle talking about something that broad. But once I find a specific nugget there, or if there's some sort of like specific thing that happens, like an event or, you know, something on Twitter or some like big thing that I can use as a lens to talk about disability related issues, I would love to do that, because that is something that I care about quite a bit. All right, so close. Ben Shapiro likes Blade Runner? If that's how you know you're on the wrong side of history. I don't actually feel that strongly about it. I just like to tease. Okay. Ben Demery says, what is the liberal arts? I went to a liberal arts college and I wouldn't know how to describe it to anyone. It is a belief that to live in a world that we live in, that is, well, specifically in the United States, where we have a representative democracy and our voices are heard, in theory, maybe for some of us not so much in practice, but when we live in a world where our voices actually matter to the democratic processes of the government, and when we live in a world that is as globalized and interconnected as it is, that we need to have a base set of skills or a base understanding of a lot of different topics in order to navigate in our world. Like if all of us were specialists and didn't have any knowledge outside of our specific area of expertise, the world would not function. We need generalists, we need, you know, Renaissance people, jacks of all trades. We need more people like that, because when you understand things from a different discipline, it gives you a lot more nuance. So like, for instance, my husband is an engineer, as I mentioned, and he sometimes has meetings with people from different like parts of the engineer tree, because like if you just have like a mechanical engineer, like two mechanical engineers who are working with each other to solve a problem, they might totally ignore the like electrical problems or the manufacturing problems, or, you know, like if they didn't have somebody like from HR, they might ignore, you know, the problems that actually affect human beings. And so that's why you need to not just be in your little bubble. Okie doke. Oh, Alexa Dunn is in the chat. Hello, hello. Wonderful. If you are all not familiar with Alexa Dunn, so I straddle this line between the like bread tube and booktube, and Alexa Dunn is wonderful booktube friend. She says NYU is now $75,000 a year. That's wild. Like, that's, I cannot imagine that. Let's see. We live in a society. A little bit of my soul died just there. Yes, holistic understanding of education over ultra specialization. Yes. Ooh, Jacob asks, how come the most important jobs in society, like educators, firefighters, nurses, police, etc., are barely enough to live off of? I don't have a good answer to that because I haven't studied the like history of the economics of that kind of thing, but I think that it's, I don't know, like I don't know what caused it to be that way, but I know that there are a lot of factors that keep it that way. Like, for instance, a lot of things that people tell teachers is like, well, you should just do it because you believe in it. You know, you're changing these kids' lives. You don't need, you know, that is a reward in and of itself. And like, yeah, but I also have to like feed my family. And I think, as Not a Bear says, undervalued necessary roles, I think that maybe part of it is that they're like invisible, or like they're just like, they're there sort of in the periphery. I mean, same with like sanitation workers, like trash collectors, a lot of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like people like mechanics and plumbers, those sorts of jobs that are very helpful, but aren't like, you know, people see them as like fringe things. Like you only really need them when you're a child, or you only need them when you're like something breaks. And so they don't feel as necessary. James Tallis also in the chat. Everybody's here. Oh my gosh. Yeah. La Cavidora says, I think the short answer is those jobs have low profit value, so they get less attention. Yeah. Yeah, so they can't be as like easily exploited as far as like labor goes. That's interesting. The more I think about that, the more interesting it is. Oh, he's stretching. Oh, but everything is backwards. Okay, over here. This boy. He's so good. Okay. Plumbers do make bank. A lot of people like mechanics and plumbers and stuff make really good money. And that is great. I am very pro that. Welders. That is the trade to do. They make so much money. And welding is just like cool. It's a very cool thing. Let's see. Yeah, Alexa says, and with teachers and nurses, you need to consider the intersection of gender. That is true. Those are like girl jobs. That's so interesting. I mean, I don't have any like answers here, but like, yeah, they're interesting to think about. Yeah, we don't pay people based on how useful they are, how much we need them. We base it on how little we can pay someone, and people will still do the job. Yeah. What about when robots take over education? Thank you, aliens, for that wonderful question. So when I was little, I would draw up all of these little like inventions that I wanted to be real. And one of the things that I created, oh, our music has ended. Let's start that over. One of the things that I created was a like school replacement device. And it was modeled after like a Palm Pilot, because this was before the age of like even like iPod touches or smartphones or tablets or any of that. So it was modeled after a Palm Pilot or like even like a BlackBerry, I guess, where Blackberries were around at that point. And it really was like what a modern smartphone is. Like, you would be able to ask it questions and it would answer them for you. It would have like little spelling tests that you could do. It would have like history information that you could just look up. Because to me, like as a child, like that's all school was. Like it was just this list of facts and spelling tests and like and math quizzes, and that was it. And like I think maybe for elementary school or primary school, that is most of what it is. At least when I was a child, there's not quite a lot of critical thinking at that point in development. But that's neither here nor there. Before MP3 players, it wasn't before MP3 players. Like, I had MP3 players. Do you all remember Zune? Zune was the coolest thing. I was envious of my friends who had Zunes. Zunes were very cool. But no, I had an iPod Shuffle and then an iPod Nano. But it was before the age of the iPod Touch. Or it was like right at the early stages of iPod Touch. The college bubble will burst. Hot take. Yeah, even middle and upper middle class kids are taking on 6 figures of debt and not getting jobs. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it because it makes me sad to think about, especially as a former college teacher, but like it's hard to see this system and know that it's broken and know that people are still funneling into it because we feel like we have to, because we're told that we have to, you know, survive in this world, and then it's just going to crash and burn inevitably, and that's really sad to think about. Ben says, I'm thinking of going to a community college to get my CDL. I hear truckers make bank. That's great. I have a couple friends who are truckers and they really enjoy it. And also, like, community college, huge advocate of community college. I taught at a community college for a couple years. Always a fan of that. Yeah, school isn't just facts, it's learning how to think. Yes, I think that's the ideal. I don't know if it always happens, but I think that's what most teachers try to do, even if it doesn't always happen. Yeah, a lot of bachelor's degrees don't have real value attached. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I'm honestly waiting for schools to crumble. I also don't think that schools should teach us how to think, especially since there are a lot of ways of knowing. That's true. That's one of the hard things with, like, the concept of critical thinking, is like so many people have so many different understandings of what it is. And part of me, I actually want to do a video on critical thinking. I think I have a couple of books on the concept of critical thinking and like what it means and sort of like the history of the term. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, a bachelor's degree is now a stepping stone for many to go to grad school, an expensive stepping stone. Yes, that's what it was for me. Robots. Yes. Yeah, statistically, y'all are sleeping on community colleges. Yeah, community colleges. To be fair, community colleges often are sort of the opposite of liberal arts colleges, where you go there for a specialty. Like, you just go to get, you know, just a certificate in whatever, or just your, you know, welding license. I don't know, education is weird and hard as like a concept. One major value for college, says Pink Duck Princess UU, networking opportunities, professional and otherwise. What other spaces could that happen in? So in this like hypothetical future, or hypothetical alternative universe, where colleges and universities don't exist, how would networking happen? Because I feel like if colleges and universities didn't exist, then everything would be sort of like trade oriented, and most things would be like apprenticeships. And I feel like those apprenticeships, like your mentor would be the person that would get you in contact with other people. Which, like, there's a lot of problems with that because, you know, personal biases come into account. Not that our way of doing things doesn't have that, but, like, it's a lot easier when it's just, you know, one person who decides if they want you to be their apprentice and if they want to, you know, offer you these opportunities. Let's see. Ooh, Ferris Priest says, the 100K in debt with no job is a bad take by your audience. Would be glad to share the data. Currently writing a grant to help low-income youth get into college. I would be interested in hearing more about that. Like, in what way is it a bad take? Is it just like that it's not as common as we're saying that it is, or like people don't have as much debt? I'm like genuinely curious about this. Let's see. Yeah, networking opportunities in our capitalist structures tend to be more greedy. Yes. Oh, DC McF. Thank you for the $10. For whom is one that can only find his way by moonlight, and his punishment is that he sees the dawn before the rest of the world. Oscar Wilde. Have a lovely new year. Thank you for the spooky little quote, and the spooky little bat, and the spooky little skull. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have actually no qualifications for the job I do, just tons of experience. I have heard that happening a lot. I think experience is now becoming a lot more valuable. There was something else I was going to say and now I forgot. I love your voice. Oh, thank you. A lot of people say that, and I just, like, I'm glad that you like it because I think that I sound like a 12-year-old. Ooh, game jams, hackathons, maker conventions might be a good alternative method for networking. But what about... So that's all great for very, like, concrete things, but what about the more abstract things? I guess, like, philosophy conventions? But then, I mean, if you're outsourcing all of your networking to conventions, I mean, that has a lot of, like, that has a lot of concerns as far as, you know, disabilities, like people who may not be able to go to those conventions, as far as, like, economic issues, may not be able to afford to, like, drive across the country to go to that convention. So that's potentially an issue with that. Let's see. Yeah, six-figure debt is not good. Yeah. And that's, well, I have a lot to say about higher ed. Okay. Ferris Priest says, the TLDR version is that, on average, people have $30,000 in debt. The job conversation is interesting because of rent-seeking behavior by employers. Would you be open to be emailing data/T? Yes. I am always open to that. That is interesting. I'm just trying to think of, like, how sort of my mindset on some of the issues with academia could be shaped by some changes in the data. That's interesting. Nerd Teacher says, I have to head to a meeting. Have a lovely rest of your stream, and I will send you a DM to pester you in general. I look forward to it. Thank you for hanging out, Nerd Teacher. Metaverse equals accessibility. I don't know that that's true. One thing, let me actually see if I can find this video. So there's this person whose videos I watch intermittently. His name is Peter Netter, and he's a funny person. Funny in that he is humorous, and also in that he's like just odd. And I mean that in the best way. But the metaverse, all issues of like privacy and information and like data mining and stuff aside, I am always very against anything that has to be online, anything that is, you know, online only, anything that assumes that you have a solid and fast internet connection. And I'm going to share a video in chat that is a Peter Netter video on this exact issue, because he grew up similarly to myself and my husband, in that we grew up in like a very rural area. Like, I didn't have usable internet, like internet for anything other than like looking at Facebook, and this was in like the early mid 2000s, like early Facebook, like Farmville era of Facebook. Like even Farmville, we had to limit how much we could play Farmville, which, you know, as a 12-year-old was like, I just wanted to play Farmville all the time. Anyway, that was all that our internet could do, was like load a Facebook page in maybe 30 seconds. And that was how I lived until like I was, I want to say like a freshman in high school. And then we got like metered internet, where it wasn't even high speed, but it was better. It wasn't quite dial-up, but it was limited. We were limited to 200 megabytes a day for a family of, I think there were 4 of us living there at the time. 200 megabytes across 4 people in a whole day. Like, what do you do? You know? And so I didn't understand like internet as a thing that I could use outside of social media until I was in college. Like, I never streamed things. I didn't watch YouTube until I was in college, because YouTube videos like were off limits, because if we passed that 200 megabyte mark, then we were throttled. Then we were basically at dial-up speeds until the next day when the period started over. So like there's just so much of that like early internet time that I had to learn from friends. Like, I would sometimes go to a friend's house, and her family was great, and they had like full high-speed internet, and so I could watch like, you know, the early meme videos, like the Leroy Jenkins and they're taking the hobbits to Isengard, and, you know, all of those early 2000s memes. And so I feel there's a lot of like personal anger, righteous anger about the concept of internet access, because it's not a luxury that everybody has, and it is a luxury. Like, even when I go back home to visit my parents, like, I have to be conscious of how much bandwidth I'm using, and it's slow. And I know that there are a lot of people, especially in more rural areas of places like West Virginia and Kentucky, that don't have internet access. And if they do have it, it's like dial-up speeds. And so, and I know that it's kind of silly that like this is the thing to get mad about, but like when people sell games that are always online, it's like you've just cut out a whole chunk of your audience who don't have internet or don't have fast enough internet to be able to use that. And it's frustrating. Like, one thing that I think is the most the wildest example of this is Fallout 76, which, for those of you who do not know, Fallout 76 is an always online, like, MMO sort of, I guess it's not massive, but it's a multiplayer online, like, server Fallout game that is set in West Virginia. Like, I can go to where my hometown is in that game, which is pretty cool. But what's funny, and I say funny with, like, very heavy air quotes, is that there's a lot of places in West Virginia, in very rural West Virginia, where people cannot play that game set in their state because they don't have high-speed internet access. And also because the game is, like, super buggy, but that's a whole other concern. Okay, soapbox over. I'm gonna go through the chat now to see what I missed while I was ranting. Farmville was ridiculous. How dare you? Farmville was an integral part of my childhood. I bet all that Farmville experience is paying dividends now. Yep. You know it. Yeah. Also, a lot of the things that I talk about are focused on the US because I am from the US and we forget that the world exists. But yeah, like, a lot of these problems are compounded or even more stark in other countries. Like, there are a lot of places in the world where there is just no access to this internet, and a lot of the times we forget that. Sounds kind of ironic living in a rural area playing Farmville. You pretty much live Farmville in real life. But the thing is, because of the climate of where I lived, we couldn't always grow some of the fun crops, you know? Yeah, you don't realize how much a solid internet connection matters until you don't have one. Yes. That takes me back. Leroy Jenkins. Yep. Oh gosh. Oh, the before times. Yeah. I remember, Anthony Shanks, I remember when Amazon just sold books. And then they started selling other things, and I was like, why is this book company selling me other things? Yes, La Cafe Dora, I agree 100%. Internet needs to become a utility like power and water. I think that the internet, like shelter and food and healthcare, maybe not in this country, I think that it is something that people need in order to survive in this day and age, in this world. Like, there's really not much you can do without internet access today. Charlie the Unicorn. Oh, yeah. Old man shouts at internet cloud. Yeah. Oh, really cathartic to hear someone talk about this, Zoe. Good, I am glad. Are people, like, not talking about this? I mean, I guess not, because the Peter Netter video is, like, what? Oh, it's only 4 months old. But, I forget where I was going with this. Oh, but, like, yeah, I guess it's not something that people are talking about. I don't know, maybe that's a video idea. It'll have to percolate in my brain for a little bit. Ooh, Ferris Priest says, one of my grad school peers is writing up a series of essays on Fallout 76. She's a West Virginia native, teaching CNF in Tennessee. That is wonderful. I didn't mean for that to sound as condescending as it did. That is awesome. I would love to hear more about that when those essays are published or come out. That sounds great. Oh, look at him. Oh, I always cover him up because I go the wrong direction. There we go. Ah, he's such a good boy. Okay. There's a world outside the United States? What? Yeah. Yes, Farmville is idealized. You don't need to get tired and dirty. And things grow so quickly, you don't have to wait like a whole year to harvest things. Internet access and all of these issues are like never in the forefront of anything. That is so surprising to me. Tudes says, have you had a productive conversation with someone who's invested in the moral panic around critical race theory? That is something that I have wanted to talk about, and I'm sort of waiting. There's a lot of research and stuff that's going to have to go into talking about that before I feel prepared to talk about that at all. Do you have another job outside of YouTube? Not anymore. I was a teacher, and then COVID happened and I was teaching online, and there was just a lot of frustration that I had with the teaching job that I had. And so when I moved and when YouTube became enough that I was being paid about as much as I was teaching, I was like, let's give it a try. Let's see if we can do this full time. And so currently it is just the YouTube thing. Locally, East Midlands, UK, COVID showed that some of our schools have a fifth of their kids without any internet access for homeschooling. That is so... Yeah. I think COVID... that was the last time that I got like really angry about the internet access issue, was when school started going all remote. And especially like in my hometown, like my husband's mom works in the schools in our hometown, and she was talking about that, and she was talking about all these kids that don't have internet access at home. And it's like, how what are you supposed to do? Like, how, if you want your students to do school online, how can they do that if they don't have internet access? Okie doke. Stardew Valley is where it's at. Hot take. Don't love Stardew Valley. I find it a little bit boring. Which is weird because I like other games like that. I don't know what it is about Stardew Valley specifically that just doesn't do it for me. Have you read Racism Without Racists? I finished it last year and it was a great read. My mom read that and recommended it, but I haven't actually gotten around to reading it yet. So I will have to put that on the to-read pile. Thank you for that recommendation. And now you teach all of us instead. I do. Ooh. Ben Demery says, I'd really like to educate myself on the classics, but they're so difficult to read sometimes. Like I read A Tale of Two Cities, and for some reason I couldn't get into it. Do I have an upcoming video for you? That's all I'm going to say on the matter. Ooh, good old moral panic, saving us from the dangerous vices of D&D and rock and roll music. Maybe we should have listened to it about Harry Potter, though. Nice. Ooh, if I may ask, says Mega Crazy Hand, what is your feeling on the banned books list? I know it's often misconstrued because Harry Potter was commonly challenged, but I think there are more interesting trends there. Yeah, so I don't know all of the things that are on it, but I know that a lot of the things that get books banned are... like, some things are because they're graphic, or there's, you know, like sexual assault or violence or things like that. And I think, you know, people have different meters for how much of that is acceptable to them. So that's fine. I'm not going to touch that. But I think some of the other things that get books banned are they're banned because they start uncomfortable conversations around things like race and gender and, you know, questioning capitalism and things like that. So yeah, I think a lot of things are on the banned books list that shouldn't be. June Simmons says, hey, I just want to pop in and say your content is amazing and really helps me see how to be more effective in unbiased debater. Love your stuff. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you, June. Leo says there was a heartwarming story, at the beginning of COVID about a teacher driving to individual students without internet access for their lessons. Yeah, that's, I mean, wonderful. That's, that teacher sounds wonderful, but frustrating that they felt that that was necessary for them to do. Stardew Valley takes a lot of time investment. Yeah. Oh gosh. I can't keep up with the chat. Okay. How do you tackle research for your videos? Is it all started on Google, etc., or are there specific educational sites you visit? Is there a good way to vet your sources? So I usually start with things that I already kind of know about, which that will run out eventually and I'll have to figure out what to do then. But for now, I start with things that I already know about, things that I studied like in graduate school or even undergrad. And so I have a lot of those sources already, like these books back here. A lot of them are textbooks because that's who I am as a person. And so I usually start there. And my preferred research method is to look at the sources, like the source list of the sources that I use. Pro tip for any of you who are in school or who are doing like research writing, that's a great thing to do. Find a textbook written by, you know, some sort of scholar, look at all of their sources, and you can just like daisy chain that together. Like find a source, look at their bibliography, find that source, look at their bibliography, and on and on and on, and it's great. That's usually what I do. But if I need to find some sources that are more contemporary, because that is one of the issues that you run into doing that like daisy chain method, is you just go back in time. So if I want something that's more contemporary, or if there's something that I don't have, I do a lot of Google Scholar. I do a lot of even just like regular Googling, and then if I find a good article, I look at its sources and then find those sources. I try to get, you know, as primary as possible, because for the kind of work that I do, it's useful. You know, if it were like science stuff, it's science teacher or science papers are a little bit harder to read. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, is there a good way to vet your sources? I didn't cover that. Usually like if it's somebody that I'm going to be quoting a lot, or if I'm going to be using like their book a lot, I look them up and make sure that they're like not hugely problematic, and even if they are, like I make sure to reference it just so that people are aware. Not me playing Stardew throughout the entire stream. Java Dragon, that's a cool name. You were an English teacher, right? Can you tell me why Word has like a billion different ways to write quotation marks? I can't tell you that. I don't know either. Like why some of them are straight and some of them are like curly. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd love to know the answer to that. Let's see. Can you prepare me a practice test for generative phonology? I cannot, unfortunately. Ooh, Ooh, lots of hot takes about Tale of Two Cities in chat. To be honest, I've never read it. Hot take, says Ben. Catcher in the Rye does more harm than good. I don't like Catcher in the Rye. I don't know that it does more harm, but I'm just not a fan. And Slaughterhouse-5 is criminally underrated. Yes, I agree. Wholeheartedly. Slaughterhouse-5. I think that Kurt Vonnegut is... More people need to read Kurt Vonnegut. Wonderful, wonderful writer. Let's see... Oh gosh. Oh, I'm missing so much. Okay. I currently run a grant for low-income students. Last 2 years had to do virtual summer school even with money to provide internet, lack of coverage, crippled programming. Yeah, it's... I don't have any good answers, but I might at some point make a video to try and sort of spread awareness of this internet access issue. King Lear for the win. I really like King Lear. I think King Lear is my second favorite. Shakespeare. I forgot Shakespeare. What is the topic of your doctoral dissertation? Oh gosh. So, it was not a doctoral dissertation, it was a master's thesis, but it was about project-based learning in college English classes. And it was sort of what opened the door to my interest in ungrading and some of the more critical pedagogical stuff that I talk about in my grading video. And if Nerd Teacher were here, they would back me up on that, but I promise it's interesting. Let's see. Your cat makes my day. He makes my day too. He is such a good boy. Sci-Hub is your friend there. Yeah. I would never recommend using different online sources to find sources for free that like get around paywalls. I would never ever recommend that. But I hear that there are a lot of ways to do that. Alright. Hey Zoe, how would you go about trying to convince a friend to get the vaccine? Oh gosh. I think it depends on the reason that they're not interested in it. So I think that would be the first step, and then going from there. Which I realize is not necessarily the most helpful advice, but... Okie doke. I forgot Shakespeare. Yeah, listen. Ooh! What is the correct way of using a semicolon? I am a very big semicolon fan. So, there are two different ways that you can use semicolons. One of them is like a fancy comma. So you know how when you have a list of things, like I went to the store and I got bread, comma, milk, comma, and cheese. That's great. But what if those items in that list had commas in them? Like if you were listing different cities. Like I went to Las Vegas, comma, Nevada, and Washington, comma, DC, and I don't know, Pittsburgh, comma, Pennsylvania. It would be confusing to have all those commas back and forth, or like back to back to back. So what you could do is say, I went to Las Vegas, comma, Nevada, semicolon, Washington, comma, DC, semicolon, Pittsburgh, comma, Pennsylvania, period. So that's like the easy semicolon use. The other is when you're separating two... I'm not going to give the like fancy grammar terms because I don't think anybody really cares about that. But it's basically when you're separating what could be two complete sentences. It can take the place of a period, or it can take the place of when you have a comma and a conjunction. So if you said, I wanted to go to the store, comma, but it was raining. Which is a silly thing to say, I guess. These are the English teacher sample sentences. It's always about like cake and stores. Anyway, so you have the comma and the but. You can have that, or you could put a period there and make it two separate sentences and say, I went to the store, it was raining. Or you could have a semicolon. Now, how semicolons are different from, well, so you say, I went to the store, semicolon, it was raining. Now, the difference between those three methods of connecting those two thoughts is it's sort of like a spectrum, and that spectrum goes, it's about like how connected those sentences are. If you think that those ideas are really closely connected, then you might want to use the comma and the conjunction, or you might want to use the semicolon. But if you think that those two ideas aren't really related to each other very much, then that's when you use the period. Let me know if that made sense. I love semicolons. Okie doke. Let's see. Okie doke. Love Cratcher in the Rye. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I just don't really. Oh, I recently read House of Leaves, and now I'm sad I didn't pay attention in literature class because I feel like I should read parts a second time and fully grasp them. Have you read it? And opinion. I have read it. It's been a while. I want to reread it, but I'm also, it's kind of an undertaking. But maybe I will read it and do a video about it. We'll see. People have been asking for a video about it. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you can see him. Let's see. This way. He is... Oh, no, let's... He's upside down. He's like fully upside down. Like his belly is just out. Okay. So yeah, there is one kitty cat there. You can also see Desmond's... Oh, I always lose the... Oh, there we go. You can see his little arm up. Okay. Semicolon fans. Yep. Pittsburgh represent. I like commas though. Yeah, commas are great. I tend to overuse commas. I just love punctuation. I am the coolest YouTuber that has ever been on this platform. I was only ever taught to use semicolons as a replacement for and. Nah. Semicolons are just spicy commas. Really. That is one use for them. That is great. Let's see. Joey just slipped us an Oxford comma. I'm pro Oxford comma, but I also don't really get the like obsession with Oxford commas. Like, hot take. The obsession with the Oxford comma that a lot of people online have is no different from the early 2000s obsession with bacon that people had. Well, I guess like late 2000s, early 2010s. That's my hot take. Subordinated conjunction time. Yup. English teacher excitement talking about semicolons. Listen, I don't get the chance to do my little grammar lectures anymore because I'm not teaching anymore, so I will take every opportunity to do that because I love it. I think I'll just stick with using the em dash. I have started using em dashes. Life-changing. Oh, the Faulknerian sentence. It's 2 pages long and a single sentence. I unironically love Faulkner. Like, I really like Faulkner, actually. Let's see. I listened to Zoe B describe grammar rules. I learned how to use semicolons. It's not really a... So all of these rules are like if you want to write in what is considered like standard English. But also, just play with it, you know? They're fun. They're cute. Education should be free. What do you think? Yeah. Hell yeah. He went full rotisserie. He did. Yeah. Please do a video about House of Leaves. Okay, I will put it on the list. I will actually literally write it down. There. House of Leaves video. Question mark? Because I'm still not sure what I will say about it, but... there is another more morose use of the semicolon as a tattoo, but that is a less cheery subject. Yes, there is a... I don't want to say trend, because that makes it sound sort of... There's a movement, I guess, where people get semicolon tattoos, usually on their wrists, and that is a... what's a good word for this? It is about... like self-harm and suicidal ideation and people who have survived that. Because, and the reason why it's a semicolon is because they could have ended the sentence but chose not to. And so that is what that means, and I think it is a wonderful thing that people do. You know, wonderful for a lot of reasons, but also, yes, a bit melancholy. Is House of Leaves a bit of a meme these days? Is it a meme? Oh no. I'm gonna need to be made aware of that. Ooh. What is my favorite sandwich? I really like turkey, bacon, like BLT sort of sandwiches. Which is basic and kind of silly, but it was funny how this live stream started with a rhetorical theory and now became a discussion on semicolons. Get you an English teacher who can do both, am I right? I struggle with punctuation sometimes. It's difficult to know when to end a sentence for me, and I often overextend my thoughts into a wordy blob. Same. I never want sentences to end. I'm very much like that like style of writing. I fall into that. What other rare language features do you wish were used more often? I like a lot of archaic language, like whilst instead of while. I can't think of any others like off the top of my head. Or I guess like thrice instead of 3 times or things like that. I like that because it's just like, I don't know, makes it sound a little fancy. It's nice. Not in like a pretentious way, but just in a like, let's spice it up kind of way. Math or history? Math. I've always been very bad at history. House of Leaves of Grass video? That's a good pun. I like that. So I did actually, in undergrad, I took a class that was about specifically Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman. Because they were writing at about the same time. But never met, never interacted. Both different, very different kinds of poetry. But writing at the same time with the same kind of like cultural stuff impacting them. Really interesting. So yeah, Leaves of Grass is great. That might be something maybe I need to work that pun into that script when it happens. Walt Whitman's House of Leaves. Mom, come pick me up, I'm scared. I love that so much. If we're talking about punctuation, are you familiar with Henry James and his long run-on sentences? How do you feel about those? I love long run-on sentences. I love them. Tyler says, I came here late. Will there be a VOD uploaded? Notice a semicolon. Good semicolon usage. Yes, this will be uploaded. Oh, this is an important announcement. So, I was talking to someone about this, and they recommended that instead of uploading the VODs to my second channel, that it's actually better to keep them here unlisted but in a public playlist. So I think that that might be what I do, because that just makes things a lot easier on my end, to not have to like download and upload and mess with that. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Heretofore, yes. Heretofore is such a good word. A tier list of punctuation marks. It's on the note card. It will happen. Again, no promises, but okay, guy random. I don't know that Thrice is fancy, but it's like it's a little, you know, has a little bit of, you know, stuff in it. It's not just boring. Oh, look at him go! Look at him go! They're licking each other. They're cuddling. They are best friends, and I love it. Okay. The interrobang is a little too loud for me. It's like, I like it, but it's a bit much. I'm afraid to use it. Oh, thank you, Russell Facemeyer. Have you ever thought about learning a second language? If so, which would it be? Also, thoughts on the Glass Castle? Love your videos. Thank you so much. Learning a second language. So I took Spanish in middle school and high school, as do most Americans, and I was very bad at it. I'm really not good with a lot of memorization, which is, I think, why I'm so bad at history, and also second languages. Like, I was really bad at vocabulary, but like verb conjugations and stuff, I can do that, no problem, but as soon as it's memorization, no. But in college, I had to take, I had to do like a second language thing to graduate, and I did American Sign Language. And I have since forgotten a lot of it, but I loved it. Sign language is so incredible, and like the grammar of it and the like thinking about it linguistically, it is such an interesting language in it. I love it. I highly recommend learning sign language, either American Sign Language or the different sign languages of whatever your home language is. I loved it. Okay. Okay, what was your favorite video to make? I have now forgotten every video that I've ever made. Let's find out. Let's look at my stuff. I kind of like the white trash food video because I got to eat Slim Jims while I was filming it. Yeah. I think that that might be the one that I liked making, like the actual process of making it. Do not jump up on my desk or I will kick you out. Let's see. Favorite chicken sandwich? Like which place makes the best chicken sandwich? I don't know. Wendy's has a pretty good chicken sandwich, I will say that. Okay, random question. What direction do you think English is going to evolve in as a language? Texting short forms becoming standard, more words borrowed from other languages, punctuation marks disappearing. I do not know. I think that the internet... I don't know. That is a good question, and I'm not well versed enough as a linguist to be able to make a good prediction there. But I will think about it. Let's see. I like your headphones. Thank you. They're actually like 10 years old. Let's see. Thrice has a little spice. It does. Competitive grooming. Yeah. Got the second language question. Oh, thoughts on Glass Castle. I forgot to answer that part of it. I like it. Like, it's fine. I don't love it, and I think that there's some problems with it. I think Glass Castle is like the good side of the coin, whereas Hillbilly Elegy is the bad side of the coin. They're like, Hillbilly Elegy is like the foil to Glass Castle. What are your thoughts on invented language like Esperanto? I do not know what that is. Let me Google search. World's most widely spoken constructed international auxiliary language. Cool. Oh gosh. So I've only taken 2 linguistics classes ever, so I don't feel equipped to answer some of these questions. I think they're very cool, but as long as they don't take over or replace like natural languages, then I think it's fine. Okay, in your grad education, did you stumble on any readings about theory of magic? If not, promise it's not woo-woo would suggest Will Covino's Magic, Rhetoric, and Literacy. That sounds awesome. I did not ever read any of that, but like, I'm into it. How do you tell when a video is ready to publish? So when I was editing my own videos, it was really hard because I wanted things to be perfect, but I could not make them perfect because I didn't have the skills to do that. But now that I have, now that I'm working with Charlie the editor, I trust him, and we like watch through it together at different stages to make sure that it's going, you know, okay. And so we kind of talk to each other, and we have goals, and once we've reached those goals and we don't think that there's, you know, room for any more like jokes or other things, then it's fine. But it's hard, especially at the beginning when you don't really know what your like style is yet. Allison asks, are you dyslexic? Sounds like a dyslexic learning style. I am not. I haven't had any other like issues with reading or anything like that, but I know my dad is dyslexic, so, you know, there might be some sort of quirks of reading that I have gotten from him. Okay, favorite ice cream brand. I don't eat a lot of ice cream. I don't really like sweets. I'm very much a like salty, crunchy, like I prefer potato chips over candy every day. Okay, Light and Dark Love says, when you made the white trash food video, did you submit it to Thought Slime or did a viewer send it to the Eyeball Zone? Wish Your Facts and Feelings video was nominated for this award, but shrug. So, I published the white trash food video, and I thought it was very good. And I wanted to submit it to the Eyeball Zone, but I didn't right away, because I wanted to have more things under my belt first. So I did then the other food things, the conspiracy theory thing, the Grammarly video, and then the literacy video. And then that is when I reached out to the Eyeball Zone and did that. And was like, hey, I have this video, but also, you know, if you want to wait, like I'm working on videos about like facts and feelings, if that would be better. Because I didn't know what to say. You know, it's all like terrifying and a mystery. So does that answer your question? Did you submit it or did a video? Wish Your Facts Do Care About Feelings? Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. I kind of got lost in my own answer there. What do you think about the outer planet pigeon from The Expanse? I have not watched The Expanse, so I cannot comment on that, but I think pigeons just generally are really cool. Like linguistic features. We're all gonna end up speaking like Zoomers. It's lit and that slaps, yo. I hated those words coming out of my mouth. Have you seen the Witcher series? I have. I have seen both seasons of it. I liked them. As a grad student, do you have any advice on how to stay motivated throughout college education? Ooh. Do I have any advice for staying motivated? I think focusing on what your end goal is. So like for me, when I graduated, like I knew that after I graduated undergrad that I wanted to go to graduate school. And then I knew when I graduated graduate school that I wanted to teach. And so it's that like knowing that what you're doing is a mandatory stepping stone for what you want to do in the future. So it's like, I have to do this if I want to reach that future goal. Like, I have to. Like, it sucks, but everything will come crashing down if I don't. And, like, that got me through the hard days. But, you know, most of my education was not, like, you know, pulling teeth or anything like that. So that is what got me through the worst of it. Hey, I just got here. What are we talking about? You know, linguistics, semicolons. Ooh, let's get political here. Are hot dogs burgers? They are not burgers, but they are sandwiches. Jesus. My cat he's just so big that he destroys everything he jumps on. Okay, honey, if you want to come on the desk, you just have to be good. Yeah, you can come up here. Okay. What's your thoughts on problematic books? Do the author's personal ideas matter over his work, or worst, when the problematic is in the work itself? I am very much of the opinion that we should separate the art from the artist, except when consuming that art supports that artist. So that's why, say what you will about Lovecraft, he did a lot of bad things. Allegedly, he turned things around near the end of his life. That is not quite as widely known, but Lovecraft's works have been in the public domain, and talking about them and reading them and stuff doesn't provide him money, it doesn't fund any of those kinds of beliefs, so... let's see, Zoe will die from high blood pressure, not diabetes. Yep. Please do not, Desmond. Okay. Who was your favorite YouTuber? I was asked that question recently and I didn't have a very good answer, unfortunately. I like a lot of people. Desmond, I cannot have you doing this, okay? Let's see. Desperate just laid on the keyboard and ruined everything. Okay, come on. This is why we can't have nice things, is because of this cat and all of the awful things that he does. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, let's go back to where we were in the chat before. Zoe talks of sins and syntax. Yes. I noticed your disposition towards the cat changed from kicking them out to letting them onto the desk. It's because he's so cute, I can't help it. Have you written any stories? I have. The thing is, fiction is great. Fiction is a lot more profitable than poetry. Prose sells much better. It makes you more money as like a living, but I'm not very good at it. Like, I'm fine at it, but poetry is really my strength, so that's what I do mostly. But like, if I wanted to write as like a long-term sort of career path, I don't know that my prose is going to be the thing. Let's see. Erin says, "Hi Zoe, thanks for making that Grammarly video. It was really informative, and when my daughter was using it for her short story, I was able to catch the problems with it." That is wonderful. That is like the absolute perfect use for Grammarly. That is great. How do you tell your cats apart? Do they have some unique features? So Desmond is a very handsome boy, but he's a big boy. But he has like a very, like, his eyes are very, he's just very like attractive, very like stereotypical kind of cat features, very like regal, kind of lion looking. Whereas Charlie, Charles, come here. Come here. Oh, come here. No. Whereas Charlie has just, like, look at his face. This is not a very attractive cat face. And he's also littler, and his fur is a little bit darker. And he wears a collar because he likes to try to escape, whereas Desmond does not. So that's how I tell them apart. Let's see. Now I have just cat hair all over the place. Ooh, who's the most interesting YouTuber working today at this moment? Ooh. That's a good question. Who is doing the most interesting work on the platform? I think... I don't know. I think that... I don't know, Tom Scott maybe? I think Tom Scott does a lot of really good stuff. he's great. And he is like pushing some boundaries that I think are good. He's typing because he has things to say. Yeah. Hey, so I just want to say your videos are really well made and super engaging. Big love to the cats. Thank you so much, Harley. Do you think it makes sense to pursue a career in English and language when you're not really interested in writing? I asked myself the same question when I was in school, because I started as a biology major, which I've talked about, and then I became an English major, and what I wanted to do was like political speech writing. And then when I realized that my sort of morals didn't line up with a lot of that, I decided that I wanted to do teaching. And when you become an English major, it's either teaching or writing. Those are like the two things that everybody's like, those are your only two options, according to most people. So there are actually a lot of other things. You know, you could be an editor, you could be a speechwriter, you could, I don't know, do like marketing type stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with an English degree that isn't just teaching or like fiction writing. So, husband reveal when? We will have to ask him. He's a little camera shy. Desmond is a Chad. Charlie is cute, but like in the way that like a gremlin is cute, you know? Like, I love him so much. And our cats do have favorites. Like, Desmond prefers my husband, and Charlie is my boy. And so like he's lovely, he's wonderful, but he's just weird. I love the octopus aesthetic. Thank you. I actually do have a new one over here. This big blue boy. How do I... There we go. You can tell that my like spatial skills are not very good because I never know how to point my fingers. He does have a very grumpy face, yes. Cat's hair all over the place in English professor's house. Scandalous. If we're talking about YouTubers, what's your opinion about our boy Brian David Gilbert? I think he's great. I think he's very funny. So there's a thing about a lot of YouTubers, fellow creators in this space. I don't think that I would be friends with any of them in real life. Like outside of YouTube, like if I met them in school, I don't think that I would be friends with any of them because they are all far too cool for me. And they are very intimidating. I would be much too intimidated to try and have a friendship with any of these people. And that's how I feel about Brian David Gilbert. Like, he's so funny and talented, and it's like, oh, too much for me. How do you read out loud without messing up? Lots of practice. That literally it. Is the YouTube algorithm written by cats? It seems like having a cat makes the channel more favorable. It's cats all the way down. Do your cats share a brain cell, or is one a lot smarter than the other? So the thing about orange cats is that they all share one brain cell, like across every orange cat, and they just each get it at different points. And I don't know that Charlie ever gets it. He's just so kind. He's like, oh no, I don't need it, you take it. He's I love him so much. I've seen you have bee and cicada earrings. Any other cool bug jewelry? Bug jewelry. I didn't mean to say that in the like Burger King voice. Bug jewelry. Let's see. think that I do. Well, no, that's not true. I have some butterfly earrings that are wooden. And I don't think that I've worn them for a video yet. No, that's not true. I wore one pair of them in my cottagecore video, but I have another pair. So this is one pair. Get them in focus. There we go. And then the other pair is somewhere, and I don't know where. But that might be it. As far as bugs and jewelry goes, I've been trying to find some good spider earrings. There's something about like 8-legged creatures that I just love. But it's hard to find good jewelry of creepy crawlies and cephalopods. Okay. Do your over-ear headphones hurt your ears when they make contact with your earrings? Sometimes. Not very often. It really depends on the earrings. But I will say, like I said, I've had these headphones for like 10 years, and my husband has some really, really nice over-ear headphones. And so eventually when these die, I might need to get some over-ears because they're so nice. Do you think memes will become a permanent feature of language like idioms? Yes. But I think it's going to take a special meme to outlive its cultural moment. Original Greek plural would be octopodes. I love octopodes. Octopodes is my preferred pluralization. You're the cool friend in the friend group that hides their power level. I don't know that cool is not a word that I would use to describe myself. Zoe's intimidating. To, like, ants, maybe. Okay, how do I reassure my moderately conservative friends to not denounce my left-leaning sources and Wikipedia about taxing the rich folks and for other subjects of discussion? Ooh. So, like, how do you convince people? I don't know. I wonder if that is the solution to your problem, or if the solution is to find sources that actually aren't left-leaning. I don't know. Oh no. Olga says, question. Once, on Twitter, you wrote about Hamilton that Lin-Manuel Miranda writes like a second-year student who just learned cool writing tricks. Could you unpack? What did you mean? So, I don't think that his... So I think if we look at both contemporary theater, like musical theater, and contemporary rap music, both of those have... There are pieces of music that fall into both of those categories. A lot of music that falls under both of those categories that does more interesting things with language than what Lin-Manuel Miranda does in Hamilton. I think that he thinks that it sounds like really cool and clever, and like I'm a sucker for that kind of like fun language stuff. Like, I do like it, but it's kind of like a junk food thing where it's like I don't actually know how, like, literary, that's not even the right word, but like how poetic it actually is. Like, I don't think that it's as cool as he thinks that it is. He just seems very proud of his lyrics. And I think they're fine. It's probably not a very satisfying answer, but that's where I'm going to end it. Okay, Van says, what is the best way to analyze literary works if I want to become an author? Ooh, so, I think what you should do, and this is a very broad piece of advice, but what you should do is the next time you're sitting down to read something, you should pick some element of writing that you want to work on. So let's say you want to work on dialogue and just writing better dialogue. What you can do is pick up a piece of work that you know has good dialogue and look at pieces of dialogue and think about, okay, how does the author set this up? Like, how do they put us in a situation where this dialogue happens? How do they end this dialogue? Like, how do they move from dialogue into the next part of the scene? How do they distinguish between the characters? Like, what are the specific language choices that this author has made that makes this good for whatever reason? The cats are now fighting on the ground beside me. And you can do the same thing if you want to look at, like, intros or, you know, specific, like, descriptions. Boys! It's terrifying. Guys! Give me a moment. I'm gonna kick one of them out. One of them will get to stay. Okay. Okay. That was just... Alright, so you look at what they do and you try and break it down, and because once you can see what other people do, then you can try to emulate it, and then once you've emulated it, it just gives you good practice with things. That's my advice. Though also, if any of you are interested in writing science fiction or fantasy stuff, if you want to write weird stuff, I highly recommend the book Wonder Book by Jeff Vandermeer. It's like the best creative writing handbook that I have ever used. It's weird, it's beautiful, I love it. Okie doke. Let's see. Zoe's more chill than cool. I'll take that. Hamilton songs really get stuck in my head. Yeah. Look, Avadora. Octopodes? No. Octopodes. Okay. Let's see. This is a catastrophe. Who do you think has better dialogue, Faulkner or Hemingway? Hemingway. 100%. Faulkner, I think, does better, like, descriptive stuff. I think Faulkner is better overall and, like, structurally, but Hemingway has really strong dialogue. Hills Like White Elephants is actually, so it's a short story, and this short story is actually what we used in one of my creative writing classes that I took to talk about dialogue and yeah, so Yes, Hemingway for dialogue, 100%. If schools teach Shakespeare now, is it possible that 300 years in the future, schools might teach modern movie scripts? What movie do you think is going to be most discussed? Ooh. See, there's a lot of movies. I think they might discuss some Tarantino. Because, you know, say what you will about Tarantino, but, like, his dialogue is interesting. Does a lot of neat things. So yeah, I think it really depends on like what kinds of things they would be talking about in these hypothetical classes. Let's see. Pause the stream. That's good. That's good. Let's see. I'd be careful saying octopodes, because you know what happens when you end a sentence with D's. Alright, who is your favorite author? There's a lot. But if I had to measure that by sheer volume of books of theirs that I've read, it would have to be Kurt Vonnegut. Have you read any Latin American authors? I have read some Borges, who I just learned how to pronounce his name because I've only ever read it. And I think, because he was what, Argentinian? I want to say Argentinian. Yes, Argentinian. I don't know if that counts as Latin American. I'm not. Is that just like Central? I see, this geography is my like, oh gosh. Do you think Shakespeare is overrated? That's such a loaded question, I feel. Yes, that counts as Latin American. Thank you, Legal Kimchi, coming in with the saving me from my being unsure of all things history and geography. Do you think Shakespeare is overrated? I think Shakespeare is very valuable. I think Shakespeare has done a lot to shape language. I think Shakespeare has had a really huge cultural impact on the US, you know, the culture in which I am currently living. But I don't know that we need to like obsess over him the way that we do in literary studies. Okie doke. D's almonds. Yep. Which bands / musicians do you love? I really like... I haven't been listening to a lot of music recently, actually. But one of my favorite bands is the Wombats. And they actually got pretty big recently. But, I mean, I've been listening to them forever. I listened to them before they were cool. But no, they've actually done really well in the past couple years, and I'm really excited for them and happy for them. Let's see. Kurt Vonnegut Jr. is my favorite. Yeet. I'm confused. I'm the only person to truly grasp Don Quixote. Most people think it's about quixotic folly or something, but really it's an affirmation of the power fantasy really has and calls to arms. I haven't read Don Quixote since I was like a sophomore in high school. Who are you listening to at the moment? Like that, literally this moment? This is Everything's Okay by Wendy Marcini. In fact, I will share this playlist with you all. There you go. He's one of the few great writers of English literature who was working class, if I remember correctly. I think, well, a lot of early writers were pretty poor. I don't know that I would classify him I guess I should ask, are you talking about Shakespeare? I guess I don't want to like assume. Do you have a Goodreads account? I do not. I don't read a ton of fiction, and I don't like leaving reviews because I'm afraid of being mean to people, even if they're dead. Do you believe in the curse of Macbeth? I don't believe in curses. I do think that Macbeth is my favorite stage production, though, so current favorite games to play. I have been playing a lot of Dwarf Romantic, which I was planning on playing a little bit on stream, but we don't have to if you want to just... I don't know that I can answer questions and play games at the same time is the concern. So, do you read fanfics of any particular fandom? I don't. I did a little bit when I was in middle school. Big like Tumblr era for me, but not so much anymore. What are your tips or just thoughts about writing fiction in English as your second language? I think that there are a ton of very successful writers who have done that, and I think it's incredibly impressive to do that, but it also comes with its own challenges. I don't have any tips because English is my first language, so I don't have a lot of I don't know how much insight I can provide into that, but I know it has been done, and know that I will be very impressed with you if you do that. For some reason, YouTube hasn't been showing your videos to me. Listen, YouTube does it is unknowable. It is the great mystery. But I'm glad that you have enjoyed what I've created. Lady Macbeth's goals. I mean, the murder and stuff is kind of problematic, I would say. But Lady Macbeth might be like a problematic fave. I might go that far. Let's see. Your romantic is super fun. How many languages do you speak? Just the one. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, I struggle a lot with learning other languages. It has never been a strong suit of mine. A lot of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Memorization. Anything that requires memorization. Just not, my brain is not very good at that kind of stuff. So I learned a little bit of Spanish in middle school and high school, but it has since all flown out of my brain. What's a topic you'd like to do a video on but won't? Ooh. Oh gosh. What is a video I want to do but won't? I think I mean, there's a lot of things that I would want to talk about with regards to like media analysis stuff, but I don't know that that's my wheelhouse, and I don't know that I'm very good at it because I haven't done it a lot. So there are some like, you know, movie or video game opinions that I have that I would want to talk about, but I don't feel equipped to do that. Any tips for finding the closing sentences for fiction writing or essay writing? I highly recommend also, if you're looking for fiction writing tips, especially if you want to write like popular fiction or genre fiction as opposed to like, you know, the pretentious literary stuff, check out Alexa Dunn's channel. I don't know if she's still in the chat, but I can link to her. She talks a lot about let's grab that. She does like, she's a published author, like traditionally published, and she talks about the writing process. She is very like transparent with all of it. talks about the like publishing industry and all the ins and outs of that. If you want writing advice and like the very like pragmatic kind of stuff, go to her. She is great. Let's see. Do you think video games are the best medium for creative writing? Ooh, depends on what you mean by best. Because I think that video games do a lot of what people would want books to do. If you want books that have a visual medium and or like a visual element, and if you want books that are more interactive, are more active rather than passive on the part of the reader, that's great. Like, video games are that thing. But I don't know that it's the best method or like best medium for creative writing. I would have to think about that. Let's see. No, Zoe, you also speak American Sign Language. That counts. I only know, really just a little bit left. Dorfromantic? Ah. That's fine. I guess I thought it was like romantic, like romance. Which makes me sound so like American. Oh gosh. I'd like to see more videos about the struggles of growing up neglected or impoverished. That I don't know that I am equipped to make a video on, but I too would love to hear more people talk about the effects that growing up that way can have on you. Do you like Ted Chiang? Yes. I have trouble concentrating when I read. Can you recommend some books that are easy to read but still intellectually challenging? I would say maybe... Oh, who did... Lois Lowry. I mean, she does a lot of like children's fiction, but it is like the best children's fiction. Like Lois Lowry, I think there's like some really good like young adult stuff that is actually like mentally stimulating. Let's see. What do you think about authors like Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson that churn out novels yearly? So, I have a lot of thoughts about the writing industry. And some of them are being saved for a very big video that I'm planning in the spring. Late spring, probably. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I think that those authors specifically are fine. I don't love Brandon Sanderson. Like I think it's fine. I haven't read enough to really have like a strong opinion. I like Stephen King. That's that. Do you have any experience with tabletop RPGs like D&D? What kinds of writing skills do you think would be good to brush up for writing games like that? I do have experience with tabletop RPGs. What kinds of writing skills? So I think if you are planning on, so for writing games like that, if what you mean is like preparing to be like the game, like the GM or the DM, I don't know that writing, I think it's more like world building skills rather than writing skills, because if you look at it as like, you know, I am the author and the players are the characters in my story, I think that has a tendency to give like too much, not like too much power to the DM, but it's hard to not be controlling when you see things like that or when you think of it like that. So I think focusing on the world building elements would be would help you kind of avoid some of the things that are sort of traps that are easy to fall into with that kind of thing. Tolstoy or Dostoevsky? Dostoevsky. 100%. What are some video ideas you're working on right now? They're all secrets. Have you played Cultist Simulator? I just got that game for Christmas and I've been playing it nonstop. Beautiful atmosphere, wonderful images and music. I've heard of it. I think a friend of mine played it, but I have not played it. I might need to look into it. Would anyone like to be my boyfriend? Says person. Anyone? I'll be your wingman, person. Okay. Let's see. Lois Lowry reminds me of Paul Zindel. He wrote YA books with supernatural monsters like Loch Raptor and Doomstone. That's very cool. I've not heard of that person, but that sounds wonderful. Yeah, I feel like once you've read John Grisham or Stephen King once or twice, it becomes very similar. Yeah, I can see that. I like Stephen King. Stephen King is kind of like if I want horror that isn't like quite as serious or like mentally rigorous as some of the other books that I have, then I go to Stephen King. Let's see. Graphic novel adaptation of Slaughterhouse-5. I didn't know that that was a thing. Why was I not told that this was a thing? I might need this in my life. It's... Yeah, thank you for making me aware that this is a thing. Let's see. Do you still live in West Virginia? I do not, in fact. What do you think of high school speech and debate? I am not equipped to answer that question. I did speech and debate for one semester in school, and then my schedule got too busy because I was taking, AP classes and stuff. But speech was like theater for the kids who didn't want to be in plays. At my school, at least. And I wasn't really with that crowd. So. Let's see. Do you like musicals? And if you do, who's your favorite musical writer? I do like musicals. I forget who wrote... Andrew Lloyd Webber. Of course it's Andrew Lloyd Webber. Everything is Andrew Lloyd Webber. Jesus Christ Superstar is my favorite musical. I know it's a little bit... Some people are not fans of that, and I understand that. But I really like it. What is your favorite film adaptation of a book? I don't know if I have any. Do the Marvel movies count? I feel like I'm not really like a comic book reader, and so I think that the movies do a lot to add like energy to an otherwise, more static sort of medium. I don't know if that counts as an answer. On the topic of RPGs, do you have any ideas for improving improvised dialogue in TTRPGs to keep a certain type of tone? I do not. I am still learning how to do good improv and that kind of thing, so if you have an answer to this, if you figure that out, let me know. Okay, Speech is also theater for a school where the theater teacher wouldn't put any people of color in the plays. Yeah. That's... oof. Do you recall the Faulkner novel A Light in August, and if so, how does the representation of PTSD with the preacher hold up? I have not read that, unfortunately. Are you familiar with the genre of hysterical realism? No. I know about magical realism. What is this hysterical realism? Ah. Oh. Okay, so Gravity's Rainbow, Infinite Jest, Don DeLillo. Okay. Oh, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. I love that book. Okay, yeah, I like it. I didn't know that it was called that. I always just sort of called it, like, postmodern fiction, but, yeah, I'm a fan. How was your AP Physics experience? I did not take AP Physics. That was actually the only AP class offered at my school that I did not take. Do you like any other commentary channels like Sarah Z or anyone? How do I survive AP language? I do like other channels like that. Sarah Z is wonderful. I really like her work. How do you survive AP Lang? Okay. This is maybe something that I would make a little video on, but you all are gonna get just a quick Zoe B teacher lesson here. So, when you're writing a paper, you need 4 things. 3 of these things were taught to me by my AP Lang teacher. The 4th one I added myself. So, you have your claim, which is sort of the argument that you're making. You have your evidence, which backs up that claim. And then the most important and oft forgotten element, which is the warrant, which explains how that evidence actually backs up that claim. Most people just have the first 2. Most people, when they're writing something, just say, you know, I believe this thing, here's this line from the text that shows that that's true, and then they move on. But what you need to do is say, here's this idea that I have about this text, here's this line from the text that shows that that is true, and here's why that line from the text shows that that claim is true. And that is very important. And then, the 4th thing is at the end of the paper, once you have a few paragraphs with this claim, evidence, warrant structure, then what you need to do with your conclusion is answer the so what question. And the so what is like, okay, you've made all these claims about this piece of writing. Who cares? Like, why does it matter? You know, what do these claims actually say on a big picture level? Why do these claims matter? Who is affected by these claims if they are true? And that's how you pass AP Lang. Okay. Oh, I forgot that Princess Bride was a book. Honestly, not a bear. D&D is to Warhammer as theater is to speech and debate. Oh. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Do you have any opinion on Spamalot the Monty Python musical? It's fun. Monty Python is funny. I have thoughts about D&D improv speech. Yes, if you want information about RPGs and D&D specifically, go to Legal Kimchi's channel. Wonderful, wonderful work that he does over there. Highly recommend it. And if you like my voice, his voice is even better. It's great. Very easy to listen to. Very wonderful. Do you plan to see the Vonnegut movie? Since when is there a Vonnegut movie? What? Oh, I feel like it's gonna make me cry. I'm like crying just thinking about it. What is this? Oh. Dazzling, worthy tribute to Vonnegut and compelling introduction for the uninitiated. A deep, immersive dive into the author's upbringing and his creative output. Childhood in Indianapolis, prisoner of war in World War II, publicist for GE, Slaughterhouse-5. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I should probably watch it. It makes my heart sad to think about it, but yeah. Any tips for college kids? Like, generally, don't worry so much. You don't need to have a 5-year plan. It's good to think ahead, but like, my freshman year of college, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a bio major, I'm going to take these classes next year, and these classes next year, and these classes next year, and then after that, I'll graduate, and then I'll go to school to be a genetic counselor, and I need my master's degree, and I need to do this, and I'm going to, you know, do my internship here. And then like a semester and a half later, I realized that I didn't want to do that with my life. And so I overhauled everything. So, will the stream be uploaded? Yes. It's going to be on a playlist here on this channel. Let's see. What's your opinion on Infinite Jest? It's fine. I enjoyed it, but it's one of those books that, like, I don't know. Culturally, there's this assumption, there's this, like, stereotypical Infinite Jest fan that is usually a person that is very similar to the author of Infinite Jest. He was problematic in his own ways, but I think it's fun. You know, you don't have to be that stereotypical reader to enjoy it. But I also don't think that it's like, you know, this incredibly like groundbreaking. Like it's good. It did a lot of different things. Let's see. How can I understand James Joyce? Start with Dubliners. Dubliners is his collection of short stories. Start there, and then work your way through some of his longer texts. End with Finnegan's Wake. Do not begin with Finnegan's Wake. What do you think is the main reason that you have become successful on YouTube now? I think a lot of different things. I think the algorithm. I think when my channel was shouted out, the algorithm was like, ooh, this is interesting, and I had enough videos in the backlog that it could like throw those at people that have a broad enough interest that it could throw them at a lot of people. So I think the shout out was the catalyst, but then the algorithm, long may it rain, was the the thing that really caused big growth. What is your opinion on large amounts of world building in D&D? My friend sent me this hella thick document with just so much info I don't know where to start. I like world building. I like a lot of very like hard, crunchy worlds to play in. But I think it's one of those things that it really depends on the people that you're playing with and what they want and what you want. So I think it's like a personal preference. What is your guilty pleasure? Oh gosh. Guilty pleasure. I don't know. There's I sometimes watch things that make me angry, specifically because they make me angry. It's like a righteous anger. I think that's my guilty pleasure. I'm not going to say what it is or who it is, but okay. Have you played Cultist Simulator? I have not. It's okay for the repeat question. I have not played it. I've heard of it, but I have not played it yet. Yeah, Infinite Jest has a bad fandom, but might be a good book. Yeah. My question is how to stay afloat in university because I'm drowning, literally have water in my lungs. Hopefully not actually literally, or you should go to a hospital. But for university, one thing that I suggest, and I know that this is harder because, you know, if you're doing things virtually, it just adds a lot of wrinkles to things, but talk to your professors. Most of the time, the professors will help you and will work with you to make sure that you're doing okay. Most professors want to be reached out to and would prefer that you talk to them rather than, you know, struggle silently. So that would be my big suggestion, is talk to your professors, and, you know, if the problems that you're having are not necessarily academic, then I'm sure that your university has, or your school has, other resources that you can reach out to as well. I would say take advantage of those as much as you can. Is it true Joyce would start fights in Paris and have Hemingway finish them? That sounds true. I don't know if it's true or not, but that sounds like a very James Joyce thing to do. As an inspiring YouTuber myself, what is the best advice you can give? My advice is... Well, I'm working on a video that will have some of this in it, but my advice is talk about things that personally relate to you. Talk about things that aren't too big that they get unwieldy. And be sort of as relaxed as possible when you're giving your delivery. That's my advice. When were you shouted out? In last, like, February or March, I was shouted out. Oh, did I hear someone ask about D&D World Lore? Yes, also, Jay is here. Feel free to share your stuff in the chat. Okay. When was the last time you watched... Oh, what was something you watched that was so bad it was good? I watched a documentary about Nazis on drugs. That was absurd. But apparently, they did, like, hard drugs. Just, like, wild stuff. That I was totally unaware of, but apparently it is true. Favorite AP class you took? AP, Lang was my favorite. My teacher was just light of my life, wonderful woman. Even now I am using things in my day-to-day career that she taught me. Just absolute angel of a human being. Have you played any D&D video games? I have played Baldur's Gate 3. I am waiting for it to actually come out full release. I have just played the early access version. I recommend The Gospel According to Jesus Christ by Jose Saramago. Thank you. I will add it to the to-read list. The professors are pretty scary. Some also seem to have a really bad holier-than-thou attitude. Yeah, and that's, I think, something that's unfortunately pretty common. But, you know, the worst thing that they can do is say no. The best thing that they can do is help. So, poetry can be not pretentious, I'm sure. Poetry can be crude even. Yes. Poetry's great. If you want to have an example of Zoe's guilty pleasure, I may become a member and join our little torture section in video format. Yeah. There's a video up for members and patrons where I, it's like a live reaction to PragerU videos, and that's fun. Yes, I am going to play D&D on Twitch with Jay very soon. Hopefully soon. We're still waiting on some players to get some things worked out, but it's gonna be great. Probably. Hopefully. I think it will. Will professors take offense to you critically referencing their publications? How many professors do you think would be mad if you trolled them? Well, trolled is such an odd word, but this is maybe something that I would do a video on. So in grad school, I had a professor whose sister wrote a paper on, I don't know, some kind of like memorial thing. It was a visual literacy class, and we were talking about like statues and monuments and stuff, and or not visual literacy, visual rhetoric. And we were talking about the sort of like rhetoric of memorials and buildings, like architecture, things like that. And her sister had written a paper about that and had it published, and we were reading that paper for that class for homework. And it is the worst paper I have ever read in my life. It, like, imagine the stereotypical, like, academia language. It was so... it was so frustrating. I can't even form words to explain how frustrating it was. It was the most pretentious. I hated it. And so I was messaging, I was texting one of the other people who was in that class with me and was like having an existential meltdown, because I was like, I can't understand this paper. I feel like I don't belong here in grad school. Like this, like, what am I doing here if I can't even read this paper? And so this is embarrassing. I actually skipped class the next day because I didn't want to have to talk about that paper, because it was causing me so much stress that I was like, you know what? It is not worth it. Like, we have all these other readings. Like, you know, this paper is not like integral to the whole course or anything. So I'm just not going to read it. I am electing to take the L on this one and just not read this paper because it is causing me so much stress. And so I skipped class the next day. And so I just avoided the whole thing. Moral of the story is run away from your problems, I guess. But, like, I couldn't say anything to the professor because, like, it was her sister. And, like, what do you do in that situation? You hide and wait for it to blow over. That's what I did. Let's see. Thank you for coming, Van, and thank you for all of the wonderful questions that you asked during the stream. It was wonderful to have you here. Nice, good dodge. Yeah. It looks like I've caught up with chat. That was like 2.5 hours of just question after question. It was great. It was wonderful, actually. Thank you for indulging that. Huzzah indeed. Well, I was planning for this to just be 2 hours, but it is turned into 2 hours and 45 minutes. But thank you all for coming. Thank you all for asking good questions, and I was on top of it so well. I'm glad it appeared that way. I did a test stream before this, and it was I realized that there were like 4 different things that were wrong, and like I had to fix them like immediately, and it was like a whole thing. But I did fix them, and that's one of the good things about YouTube, is that you can do like test streams, so it's great. But yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm hopefully gonna do this more, probably once a month, a couple times a month, depending on scheduling stuff. But I'm also gonna have a lot of other projects. There will be more videos, more extra stuff, lots of good stuff happening. And yeah, I like streaming in the afternoon, which I know is good for European viewers, so hopefully that will continue working out. But yeah, oh, and thank you, Megaron, thank you for doing your mod stuff. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I need to figure out how to end this stream once I'm ready to do that. Yeah, there we go. And until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and I will see y'all again soon. I hope. Bye, folks.